Captain Daeho Kim sat in his chair aboard the rescue ship Mercy 1. His hands shook as he watched the burning planet below. Proxima 7 was dying. The Veltari Empire and the Crystalline Confederation had fought over mining rights for months. Now their war machines had cracked the planet's crust. Lava poured from giant wounds in the ground. "Sir, we have incoming distress calls from 12 cities," said Lieutenant Boram Lee from her station. Her voice was calm, but Daeho could see the worry in her eyes. Population count is 8 million civilians. Daeho closed his eyes for a moment. This was always how it went. The alien races would fight and argue and destroy things. Then they would scream for help when everything went wrong, and humans would come running to save them just like always. "Begin evacuation procedures," he ordered. "Contact Admiral Yina Park. Tell her we need every transport ship we have." The bridge filled with activity. Human crew members worked at their stations with quick, efficient movements. They had done this dance before, too many times to count. While aliens spent their time in council meetings arguing about who was right and who was wrong, humans fixed the problems. On the main screen, Daeho watched Veltari warships retreat to safe distance. Their job was done. They had made their point about territorial rights. Now someone else could clean up the mess. The crystalline ships also pulled back, their crystal hulls glowing with satisfaction. Both sides would claim victory later. But the people on the planet were still dying. "Transport fleet arriving in 30 minutes, reported Communications Officer Tae-Yang Shin. Admiral Park is sending everything we have in the sector." Daeho nodded. Of course she was. Admiral Park never hesitated when lives were at stake. She would strip every human base of ships if needed. That was what humans did. They helped. They saved people, even people who would never thank them for it. The next 6 hours were a blur of rescue operations. Human ships dove through burning atmosphere to reach trapped civilians. They landed on unstable ground while volcanoes erupted around them. They pulled Veltari and crystalline families from collapsing buildings and carried them to safety. Dr. So-Min Choi worked in the medical bay without stopping. She treated burn victims and helped frightened children. She spoke to them in their own languages, something most humans learned but few aliens bothered with. Her gentle voice calmed the scared refugees. "How many more?" Daeho asked as another transport ship docked with his vessel. "This is the last group from Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Lee. But we still have 3 cities in Sector 4 that need evacuation." Daeho looked at the tactical display. Sector 4 was close to the main volcanic activity. The ground was breaking apart. Landing would be dangerous, maybe impossible, but thousands of people were still there. "Take us down," he ordered. "Sir, the seismic readings are off the charts," warned his pilot Jin-A Kang. "The landing platforms are collapsing." "Then we hover and use the emergency transporters," Daeho said. "We're not leaving anyone behind." This was the human way. When others gave up, humans pushed harder. When others said it was impossible, humans found a way. They had been doing it for 300 years across the galaxy. By the time the last civilian was pulled from Proxima 7, the planet was a burning wasteland. The human rescue fleet had saved every single person. 8 million lives, not one left behind. But as the fleet prepared to leave, something happened that made Daeho's blood run cold. The Veltari fleet opened fire on the crystalline ships. "What are they doing?" gasped Lieutenant Lee. "They're finishing what they started," said Admiral Park's voice over the communication channel. She had arrived with the last wave of transports. The evacuation was just a break in their war. Daeho watched in horror as the 2 alien fleets began to fight again. Right there above the dying planet, with human ships still in the area. Energy beams and missiles filled space around them. "All ships, emergency jump to safe distance," ordered Admiral Park. The human fleet moved as one, their ships dancing between the alien weapons. Years of experience had taught them how to avoid getting caught in alien conflicts. They reached minimum safe distance just as a crystalline cruiser exploded, its crystal hull shattering into a million glowing pieces. "Contact the Galactic Council," Daeho told his communications officer. Report the successful evacuation and request immediate ceasefire orders. 3 days later, Daeho stood in the Great Council chamber on Nexus Prime. The building was beautiful, made from materials gathered from 1,000 worlds. Representatives from dozens of species sat in comfortable chairs arranged in perfect circles. Everything was designed to show the glory and wisdom of galactic civilization. Ambassador Hai Wan-Young stood at the center podium, reading her report. She spoke clearly about the human rescue operation. 8 million lives saved. No human casualties. Mission completed with full success. The alien representatives listened with bored expressions. Some were not even paying attention. The Veltari delegate was reading something on his personal device. The crystalline representative seemed to be sleeping. When Heiwan finished, Council Chairman Orbital 7 spoke. His mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. The Council recognizes the evacuation efforts. However, we must address the concerning behavior of human forces during this crisis. Daeho felt his stomach drop. Concerning behavior? Human ships entered sovereign Veltari space without permission, continued the chairman. They interfered in a legitimate territorial dispute. They violated the non-interference protocols that govern council members. Around the chamber, alien heads nodded in agreement. The Veltari delegate looked satisfied. The crystalline representative was now awake and paying attention. 8 million people would be dead without human intervention, said Ambassador Jung. Her voice stayed calm. Professional. Surely saving lives takes priority over territorial protocols. The law is the law, said the Veltari representative. Humans cannot simply ignore galactic sovereignty whenever they feel like playing hero. More nods around the chamber. Daeho looked from face to face. These beings had just heard about the greatest rescue operation in galactic history. Human crews had risked their lives to save alien civilians, and all they cared about was paperwork and protocols. The Council finds human actions to be in violation of Articles 12 and 15 of the Galactic Charter, announced Chairman Orbital 7. Formal censure will be recorded in human files. Future violations will result in suspension of Council privileges. The chamber erupted in quiet murmurs of approval. Justice had been served. The law had been upheld. Order was maintained. Daeho felt something break inside his chest. 300 years. 3 centuries of human service to the galaxy. They had built the communication networks that allowed these species to talk to each other. They had created the transportation systems that made galactic trade possible. They had stopped 1,000 wars and saved billions of lives. And this was their reward. A formal scolding for saving 8 million people. He caught Ambassador Young's eye across the chamber. She gave him the smallest nod. She understood. After today, everything would change. As the council moved on to discuss trade tariffs and mining rights, Daeho quietly left the chamber. He walked through the marble halls where alien diplomats chatted about unimportant things. He passed gardens, where representatives from dozens of worlds enjoyed the peace and prosperity that humans had built and maintained. None of them looked at him. None of them saw the human who had just spent 3 days saving their people while they argued about jurisdiction. That night, in his quarters aboard the Mercy One, Captain Daeho Kim sent a single encrypted message to Admiral Park. The message contained only one word, but it would change the galaxy forever. The word was Exodus. Admiral Yina Park stared at the message on her screen for a long time. One word. Exodus. She had hoped this day would never come, but deep down, she had been preparing for it for 30 years. She pressed a button on her desk. Across human space, similar buttons were being pressed by other admirals, governors, and colony leaders. The Aurora Protocol was now active. Everything they had planned in secret meetings and hidden documents was about to become reality. Communications, send Code 7 to all human installations, she ordered. Her bridge crew looked confused. Code 7 was theoretical, a training exercise. They had practiced it many times but never thought it would be real. Her first officer, Commander Wu Jinbei, stepped closer to her chair. Admiral, are you sure about this? Park nodded slowly. Captain Kim has given us the signal. It's time. On the engineering deck of the Nexus station, Dr. Bo Ram Lee received her orders with shaking hands. She was the chief engineer of the galaxy's most important facility. The Nexus gates allowed faster-than-light travel between star systems. Every alien species depended on them for trade, communication, and transportation. The gates were human technology. Humans had built them, maintained them, and operated them for 200 years. The aliens used them every day but never thought about who kept them running. Begin shutdown sequence, Lee told her team. Start with the outer rim gates and work inward. Make it look like routine maintenance. Her engineers stared at her. All of them? Asked Senior Engineer Taeyang Shin. All of them, Lee confirmed. And remove the control modules as we shut them down. We're taking everything with us. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on thousands of human installations. On colony worlds, humans began packing everything they could carry. On space stations, they started copying databases and removing critical components. On research facilities, they began destroying projects that aliens could never be allowed to access. The evacuation had to be quiet. Humans had learned to work without drawing attention. For 3 centuries, they had been the galaxy's invisible workforce. Now that invisibility would help them disappear. Commander Jin I-Kang supervised the loading of transport ships at the Kepler colony. Entire families walked up the ramps carrying their most precious belongings. Children held toys while their parents carried data tablets and photo albums. "How long do we have?" asked Colony Governor Min-Ho Park. The first alien. "Patrol isn't due for 6 days, Kang replied. "But we need to be gone in 4. No traces left behind." The governor nodded. He looked around at the colony he had helped build for 20 years. Soon it would be empty. The gardens would die without human care. The machines would break down without human maintenance. The aliens would find a ghost town. On the industrial world of New Seoul, engineer Haewon Jung was making sure the aliens would find much worse than a ghost town. She walked through the massive manufacturing complex that produced components for half the galaxy's technology. "Set the automated systems to overheat in 72 hours, she told her team. "Make it look like an accident, and make sure the backup power systems fail at the same time. That will destroy the entire facility," warned her assistant. "Good," Jung replied. "Let the aliens learn to build their own factories." The exodus was not just about people. Humans were taking their knowledge with them. Every technical manual, every scientific discovery, every piece of engineering data that had made galactic civilization possible was being copied to human databases and then deleted from alien systems. Dr. Yejin Ko stood in the Galactic Library on Nexus Prime. For 50 years she had worked here, cataloging human contributions to science and culture. Now she was stealing them back. "Download everything in the human archives," she told her research team. "Every book, every paper, every technical specification, and then delete the originals." "Doctor, this is the repository of human knowledge for the entire galaxy," protested her assistant. "Surely we should leave copies." Ko shook her head. "They want to censure us for saving lives. They can learn to solve their own problems without our help." The library's quantum computers hummed as terabytes of human knowledge flowed into portable storage devices. Centuries of scientific advancement, technological innovation, and cultural achievement disappeared from the galactic databases. When the aliens finally noticed, it would be too late. On military bases throughout human space, Admiral Park's orders were being carried out with precision. Human defense fleets began moving toward predetermined jump points. Soldiers packed personal belongings and prepared to abandon posts they had held for decades. General Sung-Ho Lee stood on the bridge of the battleship New Horizon. Through the main window, he could see the Vega defense platform. His father had helped build that station 40 years ago. Now he was going to destroy it. "All stations report ready for demolition," his weapons officer reported. "Execute," Lee ordered. Nuclear charges detonated throughout the massive space station. In minutes, the platform that had protected 3 star systems from pirate attacks was nothing but glowing debris. The aliens would have to defend themselves now. Similar explosions lit up space around dozens of human military installations. Strategic bases, early warning stations, patrol outposts, all reduced to scrap metal and radiation. The galaxy's defense network was collapsing and the aliens didn't even know it yet. Captain Yoon Bi-han commanded one of the last transport convoys to leave human space. Her ships carried not just people, but entire cities' worth of infrastructure. Atmospheric processors, water purification systems, medical equipment, manufacturing tools, everything needed to rebuild civilization somewhere else. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from the Altair system," reported her communications officer. "Pirate raids on the mining colonies." Han felt a familiar urge to respond, to help. For 300 years, humans had been the galaxy's emergency responders. But that was over now. "Continue on our current course," she ordered. "It's not our problem anymore." On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council continued its regular session. Representatives debated trade regulations and territorial disputes. They passed resolutions and made speeches about galactic unity. None of them noticed that the human observer seat was empty. Ambassador So-Min Choi was supposed to be there, listening to their debates and taking notes. Instead, she was aboard the transport ship New Dawn, watching her homeworld shrink in the distance. "Any regrets?" asked Captain Min Jae Park as they jumped to hyperspace. Choi thought about the question. She had spent 20 years trying to build bridges between humans and aliens. She had believed that understanding and cooperation were possible. "No," she said finally. "They made their choice. Now they can live with it." The human exodus took exactly 96 hours. In 4 days, humanity packed up 3 centuries of civilization and disappeared. They left behind empty colonies, dead space stations, and inoperative machinery. But they took their knowledge, their technology, and most importantly, their willingness to help others. The aliens didn't notice at first. Human infrastructure was so reliable that no one expected it to fail. The Nexus gates had never broken down. The communication networks had never stopped working. The defense platforms had never gone offline. But on the 5th day, ships began, arriving at Nexus gates that wouldn't activate. Captains sent distress calls over communication networks that no longer responded. Pirates attacked convoys that no human patrol ships came to rescue. Veltari Trade Minister Clixfor was the first alien official to realize something was wrong. He stood in his office on the merchant world of Goldacre, staring at shipping reports. That made no sense. "Sir, we haven't received any cargo from human space in 6 days, his assistant reported. "All the transport schedules are showing delays." "Contact the Human Trade Office," Clixfor ordered. "Find out what the problem is." "I've been trying, sir." No one answers. Clixfor felt the first touch of worry. Human trade offices always answered. They were efficient, reliable, predictable. They never went quiet. "Send a ship to check on the nearest human colony," he ordered. 2 days later, the ship returned with impossible news. New Geneva colony was empty. Not destroyed, not evacuated by force, simply abandoned. Buildings stood intact but empty. Machines sat silent and cold. Gardens were already beginning to wither without human care. Similar reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Human colonies vacant. Human space stations dark. Human patrol routes empty. An entire species had simply vanished. On Nexus Prime, Chairman Orbital 7 received the reports with mechanical disbelief. His positronic brain ran through thousands of scenarios searching for logical explanations. Equipment failures, communications breakdown, mass evacuation due to natural disaster. But deep down in the part of his processing core devoted to pattern recognition, he knew the truth. The humans had left. After 3 centuries of service to the galaxy, they had simply walked away, and they had taken everything with them. In the Outer Rim territories, the first alien colonies began calling for help. Without human patrol ships, pirate attacks increased. Without human maintenance crews, critical systems started failing. Without human emergency responders, minor problems became major disasters. The galaxy had grown dependent on human competence, human reliability, human willingness to solve problems. 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared. The galaxy was beginning to understand what they had lost. Veltari General Krikstal stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at reports that made his stomach twist with worry. His empire was falling apart. The trade routes that had kept his people fed were breaking down. The defensive networks that had protected them from enemies were failing. "Sir, we have riots on Veltar Prime," reported his communications officer. "The food shipments from the agricultural worlds are 3 weeks late." Krikstal closed his eyes. The agricultural worlds depended on human-built atmospheric processors to maintain their climates. Without human maintenance, the machines were failing. Crops were dying. His people were starving. "What about the emergency supplies from the outer colonies?" he asked. "Sir, the transport ships can't reach them without the Nexus gates, and our own ships, they're breaking down. We don't have the replacement parts." The general felt anger rising in his chest. This was all the humans' fault. They had made the galaxy dependent on their technology, then abandoned everyone when they didn't get their way. It was sabotage, pure and simple. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," he ordered. "Demand that they locate the humans and force them to return. This is an act of war." But the Galactic Council was having its own problems. Chairman Orbital 7 sat in the emergency session chamber, listening to reports from across the galaxy. Every species was facing the same crisis: critical systems failing, trade networks collapsing, knowledge databases mysteriously empty. The crystalline representative Node Zephyr spoke in the musical tones of her species. "Our crystal cities are losing their climate control. Without the human environmental systems, our people cannot survive on most of our worlds. The mechanical collective is experiencing similar difficulties," added Construct Omega Prime. "Our manufacturing systems require human-designed components. Without them, our production has decreased by 80%, council member after council member stood to describe the same story. Their civilizations were built on foundations of human technology and human knowledge. With the humans gone, those foundations were crumbling. "We must find them," declared the Veltari representative. "They cannot simply abandon their responsibilities to galactic civilization." Chairman Orbital 7 processed this demand through his logical circuits. Search efforts have been launched throughout known space. Human colonies and installations have been thoroughly investigated. There are no traces of their current location. This was the most frightening part. The humans hadn't just left. They had vanished completely. No energy signatures, no communication signals, no hyperspace traces. An entire species had simply disappeared into the void. On the crystalline homeworld of Luminos, hive mind Node Aurora was learning hard lessons about dependency. She floated through the crystal tunnels of the capital city, feeling the temperature drop with each passing hour. The climate control systems were failing, and her people had no idea how to fix them. "We should have learned their technology," she sang to her subnodes. "We assumed they would always be here to maintain it for us." Her crystal form pulsed with regret. The crystallines had always been proud of their pure energy existence. They had looked down on the crude mechanical devices that humans used, but those crude devices were what kept their cities livable. "Can we not reverse engineer their systems?" asked Subnode Prism. "We have tried," Aurora replied. "But human technology is more complex than it appears. Every component depends on others, in ways we do not understand. It is like trying to understand a symphony by examining a single note." Without the humans, the crystallines were discovering that their beautiful civilization was far more fragile than they had believed. Their crystal cities needed constant environmental control to prevent them from shattering in temperature fluctuations. Their energy-based biology required specific atmospheric conditions to function. On a dozen crystalline worlds, emergency evacuations were beginning as life support systems failed. The Mechanical Construct Collective was facing an even worse crisis. Their entire society was based on industrial production and technological advancement, but their factories were designed around human engineering principles that they had never bothered to fully understand. Constructor Prime Omega stood in the main assembly hall of Mechanism, the collective's central world. Around him, thousands of mechanical beings waited for guidance. Production lines stood still. Assembly systems remained idle. "Report," he commanded in binary code. Primary manufacturing has decreased to 12% of normal capacity, replied Production Coordinator Beta. Secondary systems are at 8%. Tertiary systems are completely offline. Cause? Component failure. The precision instruments required for advanced manufacturing were all human-designed. We maintained operational knowledge but not construction knowledge. Omega processed this information with growing alarm. The collective had always prided itself on logical efficiency. They had allowed humans to handle the messy work of innovation and design, while they focused on the clean work of production and assembly. Now they were learning that production without innovation was impossible. Their society was grinding too. A halt because they could no longer make the tools they needed to make things. Begin immediate salvage operations, Omega ordered. Strip all non-essential human equipment for spare parts. Extend operational life by any means necessary. But even as he gave the order, Omega knew it was only a temporary solution. They were buying time, not solving the problem. Without the humans, the collective would slowly decay into rust and obsolescence. The smaller species were suffering even worse. Many of them had never developed advanced technology at all, relying entirely on human assistance for everything from medical care to basic manufacturing. On the peaceful world of harmony, the plant-like Verdani were watching their people die. Elderroot whisper wind swayed in the morning breeze, her leaves brown with worry. Her people had lived simple lives for thousands of years, content to grow and photosynthesize in their garden world. But when disease came, they had always called the humans. When natural disasters struck, humans had helped them rebuild. When they needed to trade with other worlds, humans had provided the ships and the knowledge. Now a blight was spreading through the Verdani forests. Their traditional medicines were not working. They needed advanced medical technology, but they had no idea how to make it or use it. The young saplings are dying faster each day, reported Branch Sunseeker. Without the human healers, we cannot save them. Whisperwind felt despair growing in her root system. Her people had been so proud of their natural lifestyle. They had looked down on the mechanical races and their artificial technologies. But when crisis came, those technologies were the only things that could save them. Send root runners to the other species, she decided. Perhaps they will help us as the humans did. But the root runners returned with the same answer from every species they contacted. Everyone was too busy with their own crisis to help anyone else. Without the humans to coordinate relief efforts, there was no galactic community anymore. Each species was focused only on its own survival. In the Veltari Empire, General Krixtal was discovering just how dependent his people had been on human military support. Pirates were raiding his trade convoys with increasing boldness. Enemy nations were testing his borders. His own fleet was breaking down without human technical support. Sir, the Fourth Fleet is reporting engine failures on 60% of their ships, his aide reported. The replacement parts we need were manufactured on human worlds. What about our own shipyards? Krixtal demanded. They can't produce the advanced components, sir. We only learned basic assembly. The humans handled all the complex engineering. Krixtal felt his anger growing. His proud warrior people had been reduced to scavenging for spare parts like common pirates. Their mighty fleets were becoming museums of broken technology. Contact the Crystalline Confederation, he ordered. Propose an alliance. If we combine our remaining resources, perhaps we can maintain basic operations. But when his diplomats reached the crystallines, they found a species in chaos. Crystal cities were shattering as temperature control failed. Energy beings were losing cohesion without the specialized fields that humans had maintained. The Confederation was too busy trying to save its own people to form alliances. Across the galaxy, the same pattern was repeating. Species that had existed peacefully for centuries were beginning to fight over the remaining resources. Without human mediation, old disputes were flaring into violence. Without human technology, everyone was becoming desperate. The irony was bitter. For 300 years, the aliens had complained about human interference. They had accused humans of being controlling, of overstepping boundaries, of not respecting alien sovereignty. Now they were discovering what life was like without that interference, without human emergency responders rushing to help during disasters, without human engineers maintaining critical systems, without human diplomats working to prevent conflicts. The galaxy had not realized that human interference was actually the glue that held galactic civilization together. On the edge of known space, a construct survey ship detected unusual energy. Readings. Commander Zeta-7 led a small exploration force. 2 years after the humans disappeared, the galaxy was at war. General Krixtal stood among the ruins of what had once been the crystalline capital city. The beautiful crystal spires lay shattered on the ground, their light forever extinguished. His soldiers moved through the wreckage looking for anything useful they could take back to Veltari space. "Sir, we found another storage facility," reported Major Velnox. "Food supplies and medical equipment." "Load it all," Krixtal ordered. "Every scrap. Our colonies are still starving." This was how the war had started. Not with grand declarations or ancient grudges, but with hunger. The Veltari Empire needed resources to feed its people. The Crystalline Confederation controlled agricultural worlds that were still partially functional. When diplomacy failed, the Veltari chose invasion. It had been easier than anyone expected. Without human defensive systems, the crystalline worlds were almost helpless. Their energy-based weapons were powerful but few. Their crystal cities were beautiful but fragile. Most importantly, they had never learned to fight without human support. The war had spread quickly. Other species saw the Veltari succeeding and decided to try their own conquests. The mechanical constructs began forcibly absorbing smaller civilizations, converting organic beings into mechanical workers to replace the human engineers they had lost. Now the galaxy burned with 1,000 conflicts. Captain Yunho Nam led the last free defense force in the outer spiral. His small fleet was made up of ships from a dozen different species, all refugees from the larger wars consuming the galaxy. They had banded together for survival, but they were losing ground every day. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up. A construct assimilation fleet," reported his Verdani communications officer, Branch Quickleaf. 15 ships heading for the Harmony system. Nam felt his stomach tighten. The Harmony system was home to 3 billion plant-based Verdani. They had no weapons, no defenses, no way to resist the constructs. In a few days, they would all be converted into mechanical slaves. "How long until they reach Harmony?" he asked. 36 hours at their current speed." Nam looked around his bridge. His crew came from 8 different species, but they all shared the same expression of hopeless determination. They were going to try to stop 15 construct warships with their tiny fleet of converted cargo haulers and mining vessels. "Set course for Harmony," he ordered. "If we're going to die, at least we'll die protecting innocent people." It was what the humans would have done. Nam had served alongside human officers for 10 years before the Exodus. He had learned their ways, their stubborn refusal to abandon those who needed help. Now he was one of the few beings in the galaxy still following that example. But as his ships jumped to hyperspace, Nam couldn't help but wonder where the humans were now. Did they know what was happening to the galaxy they had once protected? Did they care? In the depths of space beyond the galactic rim, war chronicler Yun Bihan was documenting everything. Her stealth ship, the Silent Observer, moved through the dead zones between star systems, recording the collapse of galactic civilization. She had watched the Veltari bombardment of New Crystalla. She had recorded the construct conversion of the peaceful symbiont worlds. She had documented the extinction of 16 species in the past 6 months alone. Personal log, day 743 since Exodus, she spoke into her recorder. The Altair system has fallen to Veltari forces. Estimated civilian casualties 400 million. The constructs have completed assimilation of the Harmony worlds. No organic survivors detected. Her job was to bear witness, to make sure that someone remembered what had happened when the galaxy chose pride over survival. Her recordings would go into the human archives, a permanent record of what civilizations looked like when they abandoned cooperation for conquest. "The irony is perfect," she continued. "For 3 centuries, the aliens complained about human interference in their affairs. They wanted us to respect their sovereignty, their right to solve their own problems. Now they're solving their problems the only way they know how, with violence and conquest. Through her ship's sensors, she could see the wreckage of what had once been a thriving star system. Broken space stations drifted among the planets. Dead worlds showed the scars of orbital bombardment. This was what galactic civilization looked like without human guidance. On the human colony ship New Horizon, Captain Wu Jin Bei was preparing for a very different kind of mission. His ship was one of hundreds in the great human fleet that had established itself in the void between galaxies. They had spent 2 years building something the galaxy had never seen before, a new kind of human civilization. "Engineering reports all systems ready for the test," said his first officer, Commander Min Jae Park. "The new quantum drive systems are operating at optimal efficiency." Bei nodded and looked out at the massive structure taking shape in space. Around them, it was a space station unlike anything humans had ever built before. Larger than most moons, powered by technologies that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. The humans had not been idle during their exile. Free from the need to maintain alien technology and solve alien problems, they had focused all their energy on advancing their own capabilities. The results were staggering. "Contact Admiral Kim," Bei ordered. "Tell him we're ready for the field test." Admiral Dae-ho Kim had changed in the 2 years since he had ordered the human exodus. His hair was gray now, his face marked by the weight of commanding humanity's transformation. But his eyes still held the same determination that had led him to make the hardest decision in human history. Fleet Admiral's log, he recorded as he stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Phoenix Rising. "Today, we test the technologies that will determine humanity's future. If we succeed, we will possess capabilities that surpass anything the galaxy has ever seen. If we fail..." He didn't finish the thought. Failure wasn't an option. Humanity had burned their bridges when they walked away from galactic civilization. There was no going back now. They had to become something stronger, something better, or they would remain exiles forever. "Sir, all test ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Begin the test," Kim ordered. Space around the human fleet began to shimmer and bend. Reality itself seemed to twist as the new quantum drives activated. In seconds that felt like hours, the test ships vanished from normal space and reappeared thousands of light years away. Faster than light travel without gates. Without infrastructure. Without any of the limitations that had governed galactic transportation for millennia. "Test successful," reported the communications officer. "All ships have returned safely. No structural damage, no temporal distortions detected." Kim allowed himself a small smile. The humans had just surpassed their former technological limitations by orders of magnitude. But the quantum drives were only the beginning. "Status report on the other projects?" he asked. "The terraforming systems are ahead of schedule," replied his science officer, Dr. Sung-min-oh. "We can now convert dead worlds into habitable planets in months rather than centuries. The manufacturing networks can produce any technology we need from basic raw materials. And the neural interface systems allow perfect coordination between human operators and our new ship designs." Kim nodded. Each advancement built on the others, creating technological capabilities that seemed almost magical. The humans had taken their exile as an opportunity to transcend every limitation they had ever accepted. "And the weapon systems?" Dr. O's expression grew serious. "Functional, but Admiral, are you certain we'll need them?" Kim looked out at the star charts showing the galaxy they had left behind. His intelligence reports painted a picture of universal conflict, species extinction, and civilizational collapse. The aliens were destroying themselves exactly as he had predicted they would. "Dr. O, what do you think is happening to the galaxy right now?" "Based on our surveillance reports, I estimate 70% of known civilizations have either been destroyed or absorbed by larger powers. The survivors are locked in constant warfare over the remaining resources." "And do you think they'll simply accept human superiority when we return?" Dr. O was quiet for a moment. "No, Admiral. They'll see us as a threat to be eliminated. Then, we need to be strong enough that elimination is impossible," Kim concluded. "We tried helping them for 3 centuries. We tried cooperation, diplomacy, and service. They responded with censure and ingratitude. Now we'll try a different approach. Across the human fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Humanity was preparing for its return to the galaxy, but they would not return as the helpful servants they had once been. They would return as something the galaxy had never seen before, the absolute masters of their own destiny. Captain Yunbi. Han received new orders as she watched another star system fall to the expanding wars. Her stealth mission was ending. The time for observation was almost over. Return to fleet coordinates immediately, her orders read. Phase 2 of the Exodus Protocol begins in 30 days. Your documentation will be crucial for the historical record. As her ship turned away from the burning galaxy, Han made one final log entry. This is War Chronicler Han, concluding Surveillance Mission 743. Total confirmed civilizations destroyed, 47. Total estimated casualties. 5 years after walking away, humanity returned to the galaxy they had once served. But they did not return as the helpful servants the aliens remembered. Fleet Admiral Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Phoenix Rising as the human fleet dropped out of quantum space above Nexus Prime. Around him, 1,000 ships materialized from nothing, their hulls gleaming with technologies that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. The ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Sleek curves that seemed to bend light around them, weapons that crackled with barely contained energy, defensive fields that made space itself shimmer like heat waves. Sir, we're receiving multiple hails from the Galactic Council, reported Communications Officer Minha Ryu. They're demanding to know our intentions. Kim smiled without warmth. Put me through to the emergency session chamber. It's time they learned what humanity has become. The Great Council chamber on Nexus Prime had seen better days. Half the representative seats were empty now. Many species had been destroyed in the wars that followed humanity's departure. Others were too busy fighting for survival to attend council meetings. Chairman Orbital 7 stood at the center podium, his mechanical form showing signs of wear that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. The constructs had been forced to cannibalize their own people for spare parts as their manufacturing systems failed. The Council recognizes the return of humanity to galactic space, he announced in a voice that crackled with static. We welcome negotiations for the restoration of diplomatic relations. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Kim's face. But the man who appeared was not the same human the aliens remembered. His uniform was different, marked with symbols of authority that spoke of absolute power. His expression was calm, confident, and utterly without warmth. I am Fleet Admiral Kim of the Human Collective, he said. I am not here for negotiations. A murmur of confusion ran through the chamber. The few surviving alien representatives looked at each other with growing worry. This was not the humble, helpful humanity they had known. Admiral Kim, said the Veltari representative, General Krikstal. He had lost weight, his once proud uniform now patched and worn. We acknowledge that mistakes were made before your departure. Perhaps we can discuss terms for renewed cooperation. Kim's laugh was cold. Cooperation? General, let me show you what cooperation looks like now. The screen changed to display tactical information, sensor readings that made no sense, energy signatures that exceeded anything in the galactic databases, fleet compositions that defied belief. 1,000 ships, Kim continued, each one capable of destroying a planet. Each one powered by technologies your species will never understand. Each one operated by humans who no longer care about your opinions or your sovereignty. Ambassador Yejin Ko materialized beside Kim's image, not through hologram, but through some kind of personal teleportation that made several alien representatives gasp in shock. The Human Collective offers the surviving civilizations a simple choice, she announced. Join us willingly and accept human guidance in rebuilding your societies, or continue your current path of self-destruction until you become extinct. This is outrageous, declared the crystalline representative Node Zephyr. Her crystal form pulsed with indignation. You cannot simply demand submission from sovereign civilizations. Kim's expression didn't change. Watch us. The screen changed again, this time showing a live view of the Veltari home system. Several human ships had appeared there, hanging in space above the planet like mechanical gods. General Krixtal, Kim said, your empire is failing. Your people are starving. Your military is breaking down. We can fix all of that. Your worlds can be restored to prosperity within a year. Your people can live in comfort and safety. All you have to do is accept. Human authority. Krixtal's proud warrior instincts rebelled against the idea. And if we refuse? Then you continue as you are. No interference from us. No help. No rescue when your enemies come for you. We will watch your civilization die and record it for history. The general felt ice in his veins. Through the council chamber's windows, he could see the human fleet hanging in space around Nexus Prime. Those ships radiated power in ways his people had never imagined. The humans had become something beyond what they used to be. How do we know you won't simply conquer us anyway? Asked Constructor Omega Prime. His mechanical voice was distorted by failing vocal systems. Because conquest implies taking something. By force, replied Ambassador Ko. We're offering you a choice. Accept human guidance and prosper, or maintain your independence and face extinction. Either way, we get what we want. Which is what? Demanded Node Zephyr. Kim leaned forward, his eyes cold as space. A galaxy that works. A civilization that doesn't waste lives on pointless wars. Species that focus on growth and advancement instead of territorial squabbles and pride. Under human rule, Orbital 7 observed. Yes, Kim said simply. Under human rule. We tried equality for 3 centuries. We tried cooperation and partnership. You responded by censuring us for saving lives. So now we try authority, Captain. Minha Ryu appeared beside the Admiral, her uniform marking her as commander of the flagship. The Council has 24 hours to make its decision, she announced. After that, we begin implementing our reconstruction plan with or without your cooperation. The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in shocked silence. The few surviving alien representatives looked at each other with expressions of fear, anger, and desperate calculation. General Krixtal was the first to speak. They're bluffing. Humans don't have the ruthlessness to follow through on such threats. Are you willing to bet your species' survival on that assumption? Asked Orbital 7. Through the chamber windows, they could all see the human ships. Sleek, powerful, and utterly alien despite being built by a species they thought they knew. These were not the humble engineers and diplomats who had once served the galaxy. These were conquerors who had transcended every limitation their former role had imposed on them. On the bridge of the Phoenix Rising, Admiral Kim watched the alien debate through surveillance systems they couldn't detect. His senior staff stood around him, waiting for his assessment. Predictions? He asked. The Veltari will resist initially, said Captain Ryu. Their warrior culture won't allow immediate submission, but they're desperate enough that they'll cave within a week. The constructs will negotiate, added Commander Park. They're logical enough to see that cooperation offers better survival odds than resistance. The crystallines will refuse on principle, concluded Dr. O. Their energy-based consciousness makes them feel superior to physical beings. They won't accept human authority until they have no choice. Kim nodded. It was exactly what he had expected. The aliens would react according to their nature, pride, logic, or desperation determining their choices, but the outcome would be the same regardless. Begin Phase 1 deployment, he ordered. Target the systems most likely to accept our offer first. Show them what cooperation with humanity looks like in the new galaxy. Across human space, which now extended far beyond its original boundaries, the greatest reconstruction effort in galactic history began. Human ships appeared above dying worlds, their advanced terraforming systems beginning the work of planetary restoration. On Veltari colonies where the population was starving, food synthesizers began producing abundant supplies. Atmospheric processors restored breathing atmosphere to worlds that had been choking on their own industrial pollution. Medical systems eliminated diseases that had plagued entire species for millennia. But it all came with a price. Human administrators took control of planetary governments. Human engineers directed all major construction projects. Human commanders assumed authority over local defense forces. The aliens who accepted human guidance found their worlds transformed, almost overnight. Prosperity returned. Technology advanced. The constant warfare that had plagued the galaxy for 5 years simply stopped in human-controlled space. But they also found themselves subjects rather than citizens of their own civilizations. Captain Woojin Bei commanded the occupation fleet over New Veltar, the Empire's secondary capital. His ships maintained orbital supremacy while human ground forces established administrative control of the planet's government. "Sir, General Krixtal is requesting another meeting," reported his communications officer. "He says the Veltari Council is prepared to discuss terms." Bei was not surprised. The general had held out for 3 months, watching other Veltari worlds accept human authority and prosper, while his own people continued to suffer. Pride was a luxury that starving civilizations couldn't afford for long. "Tell him I'll meet with him," Bei decided, "but make it clear that we're not negotiating. We're accepting his surrender." The meeting took place in what had once been the Veltari Council chamber. General Krixtal sat across from Captain Bei, his warrior's pride warring with the practical reality of his situation. Through the windows, they could both see human ships patrolling the skies of his homeworld. "My people are dying," Krixtal said finally. "Our infrastructure is collapsing. Our enemies grow stronger while we grow weaker." "Yes," Bei replied simply. "Your people could save us, restore our worlds, give us the technology we need to defend ourselves."